It ran for 9 seasons and changed American television forever. The man who played the bigot was one of the kindest people on set. The woman who seemed like a fool was the only one who always knew exactly what she was doing. The son-in-law everyone called Meathead became one of Hollywood's greatest directors. And the daughter caught between all of them spent decades being mocked for things she never deserved. 4 people, 1 living room, 1 couch. None of it as simple as it looked. Number 1. Carroll O'Connor as Archie Bunker. Carroll O'Connor was born on August 2nd, 1924, in New York and was 46 years old when he sat down in that chair, lit a cigarette, and became Archie Bunker, the loudest, most bigoted, most uncomfortable man in America, and somehow, inexplicably, one of the most beloved. The irony was total. O'Connor was nothing like Archie. He was educated, politically liberal, deeply thoughtful, a man who understood exactly what he was doing with the character and why it mattered. He played Archie's ignorance not as comedy, but as tragedy. That's what made it land. Audiences laughed, and then thought about it later. But real life hit harder than any script. In 1995, his son Hugh died of a drug overdose at 33. O'Connor didn't grieve quietly. He went public, sued the dealer who supplied his son, and testified before Congress, pushing for drug accountability legislation. He turned the worst thing that ever happened to him into something that could protect someone else's kid. The dealer was convicted. O'Connor never stopped talking about it. He battled heart disease through his final years, 4 heart attacks in total, and kept working through all of it. He died on June 21st, 2001, at 76 years old. His estimated net worth was $10 million. Archie Bunker was supposed to be the man everyone laughed at. Carroll O'Connor made sure everyone also understood him. That is a harder thing to do than it sounds. Number 2. Jean Stapleton as Edith Bunker. Jean Stapleton was born on January 19th, 1923, in New York and was 47 years old when she became Edith Bunker. The dizzy, stumbling, endlessly patient woman the world assumed was the joke of the show. She wasn't. She never was. Watch the series now and it becomes obvious. Every time Archie was cruel, Edith was the one who told him the truth. Every time the world was ugly, Edith found the human being underneath. The woman everyone called a dingbat was the only character on that show who was consistently, quietly, right. Stapleton played that with such perfect lightness that audiences missed it for years. That is not easy acting. That is masterful acting disguised as something simpler. After her husband William Putch died in 1983, Stapleton threw herself into theater, the work she had always loved first, and she made one of the most deliberate decisions of any actor in television history. She refused to play Edith Bunker again, not from bitterness, from clarity. She knew who she was. She was not going to spend the rest of her career being someone else. She said no to every reunion, every reprisal, every offer, and she said it without apology. Jean Stapleton died on June 5th, 2013, at 90 years old, with an estimated net worth of $6 million. 2 Emmy Awards, 9 seasons, one of the greatest comic performances in television history, and the self-possession to walk away from it completely on her own terms. Number 3. Rob Reiner as Mike Stivic. Rob Reiner was born on March 6, 1947, in New York, the son of comedy legend Carl Reiner, and was 23 years old when he became Mike Stivic. Archie called him Meathead from day one. Lazy, stupid, a waste of a son-in-law. Audiences believed Archie. They were wrong about that too. Reiner's post-show career is one of the most quietly staggering in Hollywood history. He didn't drift. He didn't chase. He directed. This is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, Misery. He built a filmography that most directors would trade their entire careers to have, and he did it without ever seeming like he was trying to prove something. He was just making the films he wanted to make. His first marriage to Penny Marshall ended in 1981. He married Michelle Singer in 1989 and stayed. He became an outspoken political activist, sometimes controversially, and never once seemed to care about the noise. What people forget is that Meathead was the character Archie used to express everything he feared about the future. And the man who played him went on to help create exactly that future, through films that shaped how an entire generation understood love, friendship, and decency. That is not an accident, that is a point. Today in 2026, Rob Reiner is 78 years old with an estimated net worth of $50 million. Archie called him Meathead for 9 seasons. History called it something else entirely. Number 4. Sally Struthers as Gloria Stivic. Sally Struthers was born on July 28, 1947, in Portland, Oregon, and was 23 years old when she became Gloria Stivic, Archie's daughter, Mike's wife, the woman trapped directly between two men who never stopped arguing and somehow loved them both anyway. She won 2 Emmy Awards for the role, and then spent the next 2 decades being publicly mocked for things that had nothing to do with her talent. Her weight became a national punchline. Late-night hosts used her name as a shorthand. The cruelty was relentless, and it was loud, and it was completely disconnected from anything she had earned or deserved. What got buried underneath all of it was the actual work. Her Christian Children's Fund commercials were mocked as performance. They were genuine. The charity work was real. And when the television offers dried up, because they do, for women, at a certain age, in a certain way that rarely happens to men, she went to Broadway and she stayed. She became Babette Dell in Gilmore Girls, and an entirely new generation discovered her and loved her instantly. Today in 2026, Sally Struthers is 78 years old with an estimated net worth of $8 million. Gloria Bunker Stivic deserved better than she got from the people who were supposed to be on her side. So did Sally Struthers. Number 5. Mike Evans as Lionel Jefferson. Mike Evans was born on November 3, 1949, in Salisbury, North Carolina, and was 21 years old when he became Lionel Jefferson, the young black neighbor who walked into Archie Bunker's living room, said exactly what he thought, and never once flinched. Lionel was the sharpest character on that show. He didn't argue with Archie. He didn't fight him. He just told the truth, watched Archie tie himself in knots, and smiled. Every single time. What Evans brought to that role was something the writers could sketch, but not manufacture. A particular kind of quiet confidence that lands differently when it comes from lived experience rather than a script note. Lionel made Archie look foolish in ways that 20 speeches never could have. One raised eyebrow. One perfectly timed pause. Done. He co-created Good Times alongside Eric Monti and Norman Lear, a fact that gets buried when his name comes up, which is too often reduced to Lionel and not much else. He left All in the Family in 1975 for that project, returned briefly, and stepped away from acting in the 1980s. He battled cancer for years with almost no public acknowledgement. Mike Evans died on December 14, 2006, at 57 years old. His estate was modest. His cultural footprint was not. Lionel Jefferson walked into Archie's house and never needed Archie's approval to leave it. Evans was exactly the same way. Number 6. Isabel Sanford as Louise Jefferson. Isabel Sanford was born on August 29, 1917, in New York, and was 53 years old when she first appeared as Louise Jefferson, George's wife, Lionel's mother, and the most dignified woman in the entire neighborhood. She made every scene she was in better. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. When the Jeffersons spun off in 1975, Sanford went with it and spent 11 seasons doing work that deserved far more serious attention than it received. In 1981, she became the first black woman to win the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. The first. In 1981, 12 years after All in the Family premiered. That number should land harder than it does. Her personal life was defined by the kind of quiet resilience that never made headlines. She raised 3 children largely on her own after an early divorce. She worked through decades when roles for Black women her age were scarce, then non-existent, then scarce again. She showed up anyway. She kept the standard high anyway. Isabel Sanford died on July 9, 2004, at 86 years old with an estimated net worth of $4 million. Louise Jefferson was described as the woman who kept George grounded. Sanford kept the entire show grounded for 11 years without ever getting quite enough credit for it. Number 7. Sherman Hemsley as George Jefferson. Sherman Hemsley was born on February 1, 1938, in Philadelphia and was 36 years old when he first appeared as George Jefferson. Loud, proud, relentlessly upwardly mobile, and absolutely certain the world owed him the success he'd already earned twice over. George was Archie's mirror, same arrogance, different grievances. That parallel was the entire point. What audiences didn't see was how long Hemsley waited for it. Norman Lear cast him in the role in 1973, and then asked him to hold off appearing on All in the Family until The Jeffersons was ready to launch. Hemsley spent 2 years in New York doing theater, waiting, trusting the process. Most actors in that position would have taken something else. He didn't. He waited for George Jefferson. Because he understood exactly what that character could mean. He never married. He was famously private about his personal life in an era when that privacy required real effort to maintain. He continued performing until very close to the end. A Las Vegas residency, voice work, television appearances that showed the timing never left him. When he died, a legal dispute over his estate revealed a handwritten will leaving everything to a childhood friend. It created headlines. The legal battle lasted years. It was messy and sad and completely at odds with the disciplined, controlled life he had built. Sherman Hemsley died on July 24, 2012, at 74 years old with an estimated net worth of $3 million. George Jefferson moved on up. Hemsley made sure he took the whole audience with him. Number 8. Danielle Brisebois as Stephanie Mills. Danielle Brisebois was born on June 28, 1969, in Brooklyn, and was just 9 years old when she joined All in the Family in its final seasons as Stephanie Mills. A neglected child left in the bunker's care, small and sharp-eyed and far too knowing for her age. She was brought in to refresh a show that had been running for 7 years. Child addition to a long-running show. The math was not in her favor. She survived it. More than survived, she became a genuine bright spot in seasons that could have coasted. Brisebois had instincts most adult actors don't develop. She played Stephanie's fragility and her resilience simultaneously, and the audience felt both. But what came after is the part that gets forgotten entirely. She walked away from acting in her 20s and rebuilt herself as a songwriter. She co-wrote Natasha Bedingfield's Unwritten, one of the most recognizable songs of the 2000s, later reborn as the Vanderpump Rules theme and a cultural reset all over again on TikTok. She received Grammy nominations. She built a second career that had nothing to do with Stephanie Mills and everything to do with her actual talent. Today in 2026, Danielle Brisebois is 56 years old with an estimated net worth of $6 million. The child who was supposed to save a show, she ended up writing songs that saved something else entirely. Number 9. Norman Lear, The Architect. Norman Lear was born on July 27, 1922, in New Haven, Connecticut, and was 48 years old when All in the Family premiered on January 12, 1971, over the objections of network executives who thought it would end careers, destroy CBS, and possibly set American living rooms on fire. They were wrong about the destruction. They were right that nothing would be the same. Lear didn't create Archie Bunker to celebrate bigotry. He created him to hold a mirror up to it. He understood that if you make the bigot funny, truly, genuinely funny, audiences will laugh first, and then they will sit with what they laughed at. And that discomfort will do more than 100 earnest lectures ever could. He was right. The show changed the conversation about race, about gender, about class, about what television was allowed to say. Every uncomfortable drama that came after it, every show that trusted its audience to handle the truth, exists in the space Lear opened. He produced Good Times, The Jeffersons, Maude, One Day at a Time, and Mary Hartman, a body of work with no real parallel in television history. In 1999, he sold his vintage copy of the Declaration of Independence and made it a traveling exhibition so ordinary Americans could see it in person. That tells you everything about who he was. Norman Lear died on December 5, 2023, at 101 years old, with an estimated net worth of $200 million. He didn't just change television, he changed what television was allowed to believe about the people watching it. Number 10. Alan Melvin as Barney Hefner. Alan Melvin was born on February 18, 1923, in Missouri. And if that name sounds familiar, it should. He was Sam the Butcher on The Brady Bunch. He was also Barney Hefner on All in the Family, Archie's bar buddy, the man in the next stool, always ready to validate whatever Archie had already decided to believe. That is a specific skill, playing the enabler without making him monstrous, making him recognizable, making him the guy you've sat next to. Melvin did it in both shows simultaneously, across different networks, across completely different tones, and pulled it off so cleanly that most people never connected the two roles at all. What Barney represented was something the show understood better than most, that Archie wasn't an anomaly, he was a product. The men around him, the culture around him, the bar around him, all of it produced and sustained exactly what Archie was. Barney wasn't a villain, he was the water Archie swam in. That is the scarier thing to play, and Melvin played it without a single false note. He built hundreds of credits in between, voice work, supporting roles, decades of reliable, invisible craft. He carried a quiet regret about never being given dramatic range. He had it. Nobody offered him the room. Alan Melvin died on January 17, 2008, at 84 years old. Two iconic shows, two completely different worlds, one actor who made both feel real. Number 11. Betty Garrett as Irene Lorenzo. Betty Garrett was born on May 23, 1919, in St. Joseph, Missouri, and was 52 years old when she joined All in the Family as Irene Lorenzo. The Irish Catholic neighbor, sharp-tongued, warm-hearted, and one of the only characters on the show who could leave Archie Bunker genuinely speechless. That is not a small thing. Archie had an answer for everything. Irene stopped him cold. And Garrett did it with a lightness that never felt like combat. She'd dismantle him and then laugh, and somehow that was always worse for Archie and better for the audience. What almost nobody knows is what she had already survived. Her husband, actor Larry Parks, was blacklisted during the McCarthy era. His career was destroyed. Garrett's was severely damaged by association, punished for loyalty, sidelined for refusing to abandon someone she loved. She rebuilt slowly, in theater, in smaller roles, in the patient, unglamorous way that never makes documentaries. By the time she reached that set, she had already lost more than most people in that cast would ever face. She brought all of it to Irene without showing any of it. That is what survival in this industry actually looks like. Betty Garrett died on February 12, 2011, at 91 years old with an estimated net worth of $3 million. Garrett had already won harder fights long before Archie Bunker sat down in that chair. Number 12. What the show was actually asking. All in the Family ran from 1971 to 1979. 9 seasons, 250 episodes, 5 consecutive Emmys for Outstanding Comedy Series. Those are the numbers. They are not the point. The point is what was happening underneath the laugh track. Norman Lear understood something television before him refused to accept. That audiences were not fragile. That they could watch a bigot say something genuinely ugly and hold two thoughts at once. Laugh at Archie, recognize their uncle in him, love him and know he was wrong. Sit with that discomfort instead of having it tidied up in 22 minutes. That trust was radical. It still is. Every person in this script paid a price for it. O'Connor carried Archie into every airport, every restaurant, every grief-soaked year after his son died. Stapleton walked away entirely to protect who she actually was. Reiner used it as a launchpad and never looked back. Struthers was punished by the exact culture the show spent 9 years criticizing. The show asked one question every week, dressed in arguments about meat prices and football and who left the toilet seat up. The question was, can you love someone who is wrong? Can you stay in the room? Nobody on that show ever fully answered it. Neither has the country. The argument never ended. It just moved to a different room. That's All in the Family, then and now. A show that made America laugh at its worst impulses and then left the audience alone with what they'd laughed at. Drop a comment. Which story hit you hardest? And here's the real question. Do you think Archie Bunker would recognize the world we're living in right now? Because the more you sit with that, the less comfortable the answer gets. If this one stayed with you, you already know what to do.